Hi, this is Privateer Station. Finally, we're back from traveling, and today we're bringing you day 409 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with Olexiy Arestovych, former advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, a Russian opposition politician. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Saturday, April 8th. Time is 3 minutes past 10, and we are doing our usual stream with Olexiy Arestovych. Hello, Olexiy. Good evening. Day 409, and we have 84,000 people watching us. 22,000 click the like button, and we're starting our stream. Please continue sharing links in your social media, forums, other places where you discuss politics. And if you can subscribe, please do so to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you have not done that yet. Now, Alexei's channel is also streaming live. They're testing that capacity. In any case, if you have not subscribed, that's a reminder, please do that. Especially to mine. Alexei doesn't really care, and I do. Okay, so let's start with fakes. First of all, everybody heard that New York Times was published a document about possible leaks from Twitter with maps, logistics, routes, dislocations, and positions of Ukrainian forces before the counteroffensive. American side did say that these look like leaks, and the Ministry of Justice is starting an investigation. How was it possible to get these leaked? And later there were several more documents with Middle East and other places, almost 100 pages of different documents, and the American side is insisting that these are real leaks and it's not clear where they come from. In Kiev, official statement was made that there is nothing in these documents that presents a special mystery or interest, and that most likely these are Russian fakes, which are leaked online for. And here the ideas split into different paths. Some people consider it to be done to influence the dates of counteroffensive, others to cause a breach in relations between Kiev and Washington, and there are some other explanations. How do you see that, Alexei? What do you think about it? All right, Mark, let's see. I'm carrying out schemes to get into your apartment tonight. I have a very detailed plan, mapped by a second, to get through a certain window, to get to your safe, and you somehow came into knowledge of this. What will you do? If you're knowing that I will get there, that publication of this plan is not changing anything, are you going to publish it, or are you going to call the police and set a trap? This is, in my opinion, a very lousy made fake, which, although does have a proper combination of truth and fakery within it. And what do you think is the goal of it? I think they're trying to legalize low losses on their side and high losses on the Ukrainian side with it. What did they say? I think 15,000 of Russian losses. I, again, insist that we do not laugh at the dead people, but this 15,000 published by Russian side is a fake number, is laughable. And of course, the same pursuit of leaky Americans and leaky Ukrainian concepts. Let's plant some mistrust between two allies. I think that's more of a side effect. I think the main one was legalization of the low numbers of losses. So where do you think they need these low numbers to be published? Who is the target audience? I don't think internally they care much. I think Ukraine may be the target because, they're trying to insist that Ukrainian command is lying, In reality, their losses are higher, and if they go in counteroffensive, they will lose 5 times more, and everybody's husband, brother, and any male out in the Ukraine military will die. So they're trying to affect the counteroffensive. You guys will carry huge losses if you even dare to. So, in my opinion, this is a psyop. All right, we see that, right, Olexiy, but why do Americans play along? Why do they start investigation and all? Oh, Americans can use different angles to do that. First of all, some documents may be real, and they want to make sure where did they come from, and they want to see where does that matrix come from, uh, where is the data leaking. I think there is nothing mysterious in these documents. I think Americans also will investigate that to the degree they can. It just seems very dumb to publish that you see the plans of your enemy to attack instead of setting up proper traps. So I think they're double idiots. If they published real data, they're indeed idiots. And if they're not, if that's a fake, it's still idiotic because these ideas they're pursuing are pretty obvious. And America could play along just to both investigate where that comes from and also try to confuse Moscow. Right, right. So do you think that Americans perhaps trying to confuse Moscow in this regard? That they actually indeed believe that this is real? And Moscow perhaps will start getting more confused about what data in this leak is real. Right, this is another version that America could have made it up and then posted it and pursued it to a degree to make sure that Moscow gets their attention drawn onto these documents. But do you think these documents can even attract the attention of Ukrainian leadership to change the dates of counteroffensive? Mark, the only thing that may slow down, not even change the counteroffensive, it has to be some event of a huge caliber. It's impossible. Right, right. I think it's like a big train that's moving, right? It's hard to stop on a command. Exactly. It's a huge machine, and there are very few factors that can even somehow affect that. And indeed, very, very few. Even if most of the details become known, immediate first targets, secondary targets, strategic targets. First of all, this data is difficult to leak because there are maybe 5 people in the country, in Ukraine, who even have that information, according to Danilov. And I seriously doubt that one of those 5 people is a traitor. Plus, if anybody or could be, they would not be leaking that data. That data would not be leaked. That would be sent to different channels. So, oh yeah, I've seen a meme that Arestovych is already one of these 5 people. Yeah, funny. All right, let's take a look at the map, see what's happening. Artillery duels on Kherson. Zaporozhye is relatively quiet compared to Bakhmut. Bakhmut, intense fighting. Avdiivka and Marinka fighting. Bakhmut, there's a lot of pressure on the east and the center of the town, and they brought heavy artillery, peonies, and some other systems, so a ton of artillery fire is falling on the heads of our defenders. And the situation is pretty strained, difficult. Let's be blunt. So, do you think they're moving in Bakhmut? They are almost at the center. They're near the train station. So, of course, they're making all effort to continue pursuit of Bakhmut. So, situation is difficult. And artillery that they brought, they're again using that firewall. They're using Smerch, Pion, 150 millimeter artillery. So let's prognosticate a little. Let's imagine that Ukraine withdraws their military beyond the boundaries of the town. They'll try to straighten the front, right? Indeed, they'll move the effort to the north because they need to cut off Siversk near Severodonetsk and Lugansk area. But the main area that they feel threat is near Liman. There, let's look at this protrusion around Siversk. That's a very uncomfortable disposition for them. Show us that Siversk. Okay, let's zoom into that. Okay, here's that area. So their idea is to cut down that protrusion and to somehow they need to close two flanks of that group. There is a river, Seversky Donets, that goes from Belogorovka to Slaviansk, and it separates these flanks and doesn't allow them to connect already. But a big problem for them is the protrusion that doesn't allow them to concentrate their efforts of both groups and use them. And they're basically weakened, not twice, but 4 times because of that protrusion in that area. So, roughly, if you look at Yampol, that small town in the green area, that's where they need to draw the new line. And if they manage to close the Siversk gap, then they find themselves closer to Slaviansk. And it's still difficult to push there. They're trying to, but it's very forested and very difficult area to advance. But this is one of the strongest groups on the front, and they're less active. They're less active right now because Bakhmut is still a question. That's answering the question why Ukraine is still holding on to Bakhmut. Because the moment we relinquish or release Bakhmut to them, they fortify that direction by 4 times and they continue their efforts here. And as long as Bakhmut is holding, they don't have enough effort, they don't have enough resources to do that. They tried several times, they tried to already close it several times, but they don't have enough forces, so Bakhmut still draws a lot of resources. And that Alexandrovsky-Siversky protrusion, that's a big problem for them. If they manage to relocate resources to that front, our situation will become more difficult. It will be more easy for them to straighten the front line. Let's say that in any case, if they manage to straighten this line, it'll make our position more difficult. All right, let's see how counteroffensive will work. We'll see if you guys will consider the needs to change the line of the front. Marinka continues fighting. Avdiivka continues fighting. Avdiivka is a small Bakhmut. They're continuing to push in certain directions there from the south. Their ideation is take Bakhmut, cut the protrusion, and then we get a more standard front line, and then they intend to continue finding our troops and looking for weak spots there. So that's their standard modus operandi. Even if they switch to strategic defense, and I think generally that's their ideation, it's just easier to defend a straight line, because otherwise their flanks are open. And that can be real sad real fast. So here are some people commenting that in Cheplinka they had some issues at night. There were warehouses with ammo blowing up, and there were a lot of air defense and artillery shells stored there, and people heard explosions even 20 kilometers away. So Cheplinka became now a sort of a next Chernobyevka. This is to the north from Armyansk. This is in the south, right? Yes, it is. It's Kherson region. There is a small airport there. They set things up there. They set their shop and the warehouses, and all of a sudden something flew into that, and I think Chaplinka might be considered new Chernobyevka. Perhaps there'll be continuation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is Chaplinka. We're showing on the map. There are two red diamonds at about 6 or about 7 o'clock. 7. And that's on the southern border, right? Towards Armянsk at the mouth of the peninsula. Okay. We have 206,000 watching us live. 66,000 click the like button. How many do we have watching us on Alexei's channel? Oh, they're still just getting used to that. Only 14,000. Okay, that's fine. That's different trends. Yeah, they can watch later. And do not forget to subscribe if you have not done that yet to Olexiy Arestovych's channel and to Feygin Live, and of course to Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that live in English. Feygin Live is missing a few people to reach 2,100,000. Arbitrary number, but still. Okay, Macron and von der Leyen concluded their visit to Beijing. And there was less publicity with her, but more publicity with Macron. And they published a lot of media elements about Xi and Macron being buddy-buddy. And the Western press took a critical tone, saying that nothing came out of it. The visit is unsuccessful. I don't know what they were expecting, but it's interesting. Moscow also said something weird with the mouth of Peskov, Putin's spokesperson, that Macron and Xi might be talking something nuclear and did not succeed. So personally, I don't know if that will come through, but I believe that the conversation between Xi and Zelensky will happen. I also have to mention that Borrell is also flying to Beijing after Macron and von der Leyen. So, what do you think about that? How do you gauge this visit? I think European diplomacy is looking at Chinese influence on Moscow, and they consider that Chinese influence is significant. And they want to clarify the position of China for themselves. Anyway, there will not be any decisions made until the counteroffensive and closer times. So that's probably European position, and China is standing their own ground, and they probably need relations with both Russia and Ukraine. But we're not going to be asking for any permission from China. I think we'll do the counteroffensive first and then talk later. Regarding Europeans, we understand their goals. They need any factor that is holding, that could be a holding factor for Putin. And China is a strong factor. And what did the Western press await for? That Xi Jinping will come out and cry his tears and say that, okay, yeah, I understand your position, and would call Putin and tell him, yeah, let's finish this war, withdraw troops. So, no, that I don't think would be realistic expectations. Macron and Ursula von der Leyen, they're different representatives, so China is more welcoming to Macron. They like playing the same game that Kremlin was playing with individual country in Europe separately, outside of European Union, and every country in Europe is weaker than China, while European Union altogether is a much stronger player. So China is emphasizing the individual countries instead of European Union emissaries. And yeah, that's like an old Soviet mantra to limit the influence of Anglo-Saxons onto Europe and to preclude their unity. So I think that position is pretty clear, see-through, pretty clear. So you think that will continue, all that Chinese direction and diplomacy? Sure, it will. And when in Kremlin they will understand that things really are falling apart, they will definitely use China. China set their position and indicated that they indeed can produce serious influence. And there'll be time when Moscow likely will turn to China for additional diplomacy. And they're sitting in China, they're sitting and waiting till Kremlin comes out and asks them for that diplomacy. Europe is already visiting them themselves. Ukraine is not asking yet. But each request, each diplomatic relation of this caliber increases the value and prestige of that possible negotiating power. So you think we will see more news on this topic? Yeah, I believe so. Even if she calls Zelensky tomorrow, there'll still be no sensation. There'll be no sensational outcome. Counteroffensive will not be cancelled. They might communicate. They might unseal and cork the long silence, and we've been in communication on the lower level, so they'll just talk on the highest, and that's good. All right. There's also a heightened attention to Taiwan. Recently, Chinese army is doing military exercises near Taiwan, and there were statements in U.S. Senate that if there'll be a Chinese invasion into Taiwan, American forces, according to their agreement with Taipei, will be sent there to protect their ally. And that statement was officially voiced on the floor on the Hill, and that position was indicated. So it seems some may consider that China wants Taiwan as a payment for their participation in this war resolution in Ukraine, because you either allow us to reintegrate Taiwan or we are not participating in Moscow-Ukraine conflict. I think I think that China is insisting on Europe to take their position regarding Taiwan and China conflict, and China is interested in making sure that Europe is taking pro-Chinese and anti-Taiwan position to set some break between Europe and United States. And I think in lieu of that visit of Macron and Borrell and von der Leyen, they started these military maneuvers to impress that, to show that, hey, see, we're doing that, we can, and we possibly might even consider taking the Chinese territory. Is it Chinese? Just tell us, is it Chinese? Do you think it is Chinese? Because if you say it is not Chinese, we cannot discuss any diplomatic assistance to your European problems. So, okay. I also think we need to take a look at the position of Macron and Ursula von der Leyen on Taiwan. And I think von der Leyen position is harder. Yeah, her position is much harsher about Taiwan. And that explains why Macron is being more in the news than her, because that's their measurement. But she's the head of commission. She's the defense minister of Germany. But she can be taking political position, saying that we are supportive of American line and collective West about protection for Taiwan. And that's what China is doing. If you're saying good things about our Taiwan, we pamper you, and those who don't, we don't. So it's kind of looking for the weak. But neither Borrell nor Ursula von der Leyen are weaklings. Yeah, without a doubt. All right, there was the end of another visit on the 5th or 6th April. Lukashenko's visit to Moscow. All that was followed with more statements about nukes being positioned in Belarus. And the ambassador of Minsk in Moscow at the end of this visit also made a statement that they discussed plans and guarantees of territorial defense for Belarus in case of invasion of that territory by the third countries. What would Russia do? And Putin gave certain orders, guarantees, etc., the whole set. So, do you think these two understand that situation might have different outcomes, that they could place Iskanders with nuclear warheads and sudden things may happen? Perhaps Kalinovsky battalion will come and go towards Minsk all of a sudden. Well, yeah, I don't think that'll exactly happen like that, but and the Kalinovsky detachment, they are actually Belarus, so that is not foreign power invading. That's their own people rebelling. And I don't think Belarus will actually survive the invasion of any third power on the territory. At the same time, I do not exactly see a third power invading their country. And these idiots, in my opinion, are posing nuclear weapons as tactical nukes as defensive weapons. And they're not defensive, they're offensive weapons. Why Soviet tanks have three people instead of four? In the Western tanks, they still have four. One is responsible for charging, for loading mechanism. And in Soviet tanks, they always had three, and they had the loading machine loader for the tank. Because they calculated that after using tactical nukes, if tanks are going through that breach, the first person to lose their battle worthiness will be the one who's lifting these 100-pound shells into the gun. That would be the first person to lose his capacity. So Soviet tanks did not need the person doing that. They needed to automate that somewhat, and that's what they did. Their Soviet doctrine was very simple. You do a tactical nuke strike to break enemy's defense line, and then you send tanks through until they all die after the acute radiation poisoning. But there is no reason to use tactical nuke for defense of Belarus or Crimea. So you hit a spot and what? Okay, maybe they caught some detachments en route. Yeah, big tragedy, right? But in the field, it only is equal to a strong artillery strike. That's about it. Bakhmut is being leveled now in a very comparable in terms of and destruction effect degree. So this is all just for creating the public opinion and creating additional pressure on the politicians so they would be more agreeable with Moscow. But nobody's lynching in Europe right now. All right, 242,000 are watching us, and all 90,000 click the like button, so less 100,000. I'm leaving the frame. Oh, dude, you don't even have your stats are much lower. So come back. We need a little more. Okay, we'll get those. We'll get those. Don't worry. Hey, I got 17,000 likes, so together it's over 100. That's good. Again, a reminder, if you are listening to us and watching us, do not forget to click the like button. This is important. If you click that button, that helps more eyeballs to see that stream. I have no idea why two-thirds are forgetting to do that. But anyway, the United States sent a submarine with tomahawks in the area close to Black Sea Basin. They'll come somewhere closer. They crossed Suez Channel, and 220 jets will be also doing military exercises on the NATO side, somewhere towards the Eastern Europe, in Baltic countries and Poland. Do you think this could be a preparation for a counteroffensive as well? External preparation to control the situation? Even if it is a planned training, I think as legends and possible reactions to their training, possible scenarios they're training include some counteroffensive activities, and they're preparing. I think they're preparing. And one smart Russian man, although an opponent of mine, my ideological opponent, Anatoly Nesmian, about these same weapons, also nuclear weapons, made a right statement saying that the use of tactical nukes in attack is a military practice. The use of tactical nukes in defense is terrorism. And then Moscow will be treated as a terrorist instead of the military foe, military opponent. And the world knows that terrorist needs to be pacified until he is not capable of carrying any more terrorist activities. And that's where tomahawks and submarines and other means come into play. I have to remind that summary capability of NATO forces that can participate in the first volley is about 11,000 tomahawks in the first volley. during this whole war, Russia launched 5,500 missiles on the territory of Ukraine. So just one volley of NATO is double that size. Is capable of taking out, you can imagine how much will be left. And NATO missiles are more accurate and more difficult to intercept. Tomahawk is a more perfected weapon than Caliber. All right, clear. Now let's talk about Feodosia, that in Crimea they shot down a missile launched from Ukraine. That's what Aksionov, with the nickname Goblin, by the way, the Putin's governor of annexed Crimea. And there were more explosions. Do you think one can conclude that Ukraine is practicing, is targeting some of their weapons on the military positions in Crimea? While counteroffensive, Mark, implies that there'll be more action taken on the deeper supply depots and other positions. And according to any strategic and operative training, if you go into counteroffensive, you need to destroy airfields, fleet, any support lines, so that counteroffensive is successful. First of all, you destroy the command points, communication lines, airfields, positions of artillery and missile detachments, especially the ones with a higher caliber, everything that can thwart your counteroffensive efforts. So they're being taken out with whatever means you have, supposed to, and we, of course, will try to take out as many as we can when we start the counteroffensive, or perhaps preparation to that, and then during it as well. We'll be making accurate but very strong hits. All right, so that is also connected to another news. There was a funeral today for Tatarsky, the propagandist that was blown up, and his call sign was hot dog. I think now he's kind of hot dog after what happened to him. Mark, you know, I'm not a proponent of saying bad things about people who died. He's dead, right? Well, yeah, but he took that call sign himself. I did not blow him up, and I did not participate in that. Yeah, still, he's a dead man, so let's not. Okay, so I had a good stream yesterday. I want to mention with Igor Yakovenko how propaganda is changing in Russia in connection to the verge of counteroffensive. Oh, they're adding speakers who are actually talking about their possible defeat. Yeah, but there is something else. They're changing the tone of it. They're discussing only counteroffensive. You understand this is a Ukrainian narrative pushed onto them, and they're discussing it from different sides. The moral climate, will the soldier survive that? How will he fare in a trench? What will be the political outcome of that? They're already discussing the consequences of that possible counteroffensive. That's important, Mark, because 4 months ago, when they were scaring everybody with their horrible offensive, and they had a very strong presence on the ground, they also had a strong presence in the PSYOP level, in the media field, and one of the goals that we had on our side is to take the initiative from that. And as a result, the war became a somewhat dead end. Both sides stalled for a while, but right now they are playing according to our rules. So if I was Putin and I would ask them, how did you solve the task of capturing information initiative in this war? The answer would be, oh, we didn't. We screwed everything up, both on the ground and in the media. So all that counteroffensive will be answering a very important question. Will Ukraine be capable of taking the initiative in both positional war that we are facing now and also the bigger initiative in the war altogether. Because after we capture that initiative, Russia will have no resources to take it back. They need 300,000 more of troops, and they might even aggregate them, but they don't have any equipment to give them to. And if we take that initiative, chances are we'll be dictating it to the end of war. And they, at least on the information level, on the level of strategic communication with their media and society, with regional powers and the subjects of their federation and allies, they're already commenting that they're given this initiative to Ukraine, and they're discussing what Ukraine is going to undertake and nothing of what they are going to undertake. Not even to intercept, but just as a response. So this is a victory of our grand narrative. Counteroffensive hasn't started yet, but on the information field we already are winning. And you and I here are not the last players, not the last spoke in the wheel. Oh, nobody will value that accordingly. I told you that at the beginning of this. Both sides will tell that we are the traitors, and we'll be the only ones who'll be punished and not awarded. I wasn't even thinking about that, Olexiy, but yeah. All right. So there is one more interesting news. We are on the verge of the holy month of Ramadan. Congratulations to Muslims. President Zelensky addressed that in one of his speeches. And Kiev said that Moscow refused to exchange Muslim prisoners of war in relation to that Ramadan. Yeah, we had this initiative, Mark, right? And Moscow started to backpedaling. Somebody, Siraliev Shamseil, the congressman of Russian Federation, said that they did not get such an offer from Ukraine. We would have confirmed that, and he is commenting that to Russian media. According to his data, Russian Minister of Defense said that they are eager to give 7 Muslim prisoners of war to Ukraine, and then gives the names. And there is some commentary after that, but regardless, as I understand, this exchange has not happened, and Muslim fighters were not returned to Ukraine yet. We don't know where that will go. And I would remind here, Mark, that we, as a sign of goodwill, actually transferred heavily wounded prisoners of war to Russia, and only after they gave us 6 in return. We always initiated the exchanges. We were always the instigator of all the humanitarian exchanges and activities. I would remind we still have thousands of remains of Russian bodies, of soldiers, in our refrigerated rail cars, but they're refusing to take that. And if they're treating dead like that, chances are they're not going to respect the living as well. We did indeed come out with an initiative connected to Ramadan, but we have got a no. And overall, how is the exchange going? Because I do get a lot of questions. A lot of people are looking for their relatives. They do happen. Exchanges do happen, but one of the main component of an exchange is lack of any information about it until it happened. Because any attention to that person's name may either exclude the person from the list or raise the price for his exchange to a high level so that it will not become feasible for an exchange at this moment. So that is the best thing to address after, post factum, when the exchange already completed. All right, we've been live for 38 minutes. We have one last piece of news and 266,000 watching us, over 110,000 click the like button. Please do not forget to click the links. Share the links in your social media. This is very important. We continue to get funny posts from our favorite clown, Medvedev. He said that it'll be best for everybody if Ukraine stops existing on the map as a country, and he expressed his opinion that it will eventually be gone. I think we can discuss this mental patient. Why is he posting things like that? I'll explain to you, Mark. He is pumping up the chauvinistic degree of hate in Ukraine. Obviously, the country that is fighting for its existence and has historic trauma related to Kremlin going as back as 800 years. If you take Andrei Bogolubsky as a start, any statement that Ukrainians should not exist. Sorry, I need to correct here. He said that nobody needs Ukraine, and that's why it will disappear and it will not be on the planet. Right, even for Ukrainians. That's what he said. But any statement like that pumps up chauvinistic temperature in the society, and politicians who are using that angle, they're giddily jump on that, or people who just react to that. When you tell somebody that you should not exist, and you're telling it to the country after committing 80,000 military war crimes on this territory, obviously it can cause strong reaction, and this will definitely influence the public opinion and might influence politics and might influence further perspectives of the country, because however we are talking here about tendencies that the whole Russia might needs to be destroyed and it'll be best to not have it. Our main allies are of a different opinion. They do need Russia to exist, and they do not welcome our chauvinism and our chauvinistic reactions and statements. And what a trump card it serves to those who are wavering on the West, or who might be taking a Russian side or somewhere in the middle, or complementary to Kremlin. That's a sensitive topic. So these posts from Medvedev, they do have a certain target. They do have a certain goal, and they're affecting a certain opinion in Ukraine, and they're producing a certain pressure on our Western allies. Look at who you're growing up, right? It might be a new Hungary or even more drastic than that. And then you have to take it to NATO and European Union. And by the way, yeah, these goals are pretty serious that he has on his radar. So he does have some strategy. Of course he does. It's blunt, it's primitive, but whatever, it works, right? So it works to a degree. For each of statement like that, we have an explosion of hate to everything that's related to Medvedev, and then the ripples go out to Russians, to Moscow, and all these statements about our hate to the opponent, that is a dangerous story. And it touches everything. Twitter's posts, semi-jokes with friends, etc. But when politicians take that upon their banners, that is a different story. That may cause reaction of other politicians and other decisions. And those on the further lines who are for Ukraine and against Ukraine, it causes certain pause to the ones who are pro-Ukraine and gives ammo to ones who are against. So how do Russian media work? They actually do send often their own people into the Ukraine media who are pretend playing clowns, saying that they're even hating Russians more than actual Ukrainians. You're right, let's kill and hang everybody. The fun part is that they're all Russians. When you dig deeper who is making these statements, they're all Russians, and very often they're plants. Right, and then Medvedev makes another statement. And yeah, let's destroy everybody. Just like NKVD, the precursor to KGB, were changing their dress and pretending to be Ukrainian Liberation Army for the media effect, to cause certain controversy. They're doing the same way in the media field. Yep, the people who are screaming that Russians should not even be here, all the opposition in Russia, they're still scoundrels. Look at Feygin, he said that, he said this, he is not a good Russian. And yeah, one can applaud FSB because this works, this is effective. Oh, absolutely, that is their work, that is one of their tactics. They know how to do that. We need to acknowledge that they actually own this technology. And I can only wish that our citizens become more tolerant and more careful about their statements. We understand that we can act within the trauma of this war, and it's difficult to expect from an average Ukrainian the position that Feygin and Arestovych are exposing on this channel of understanding and strategic thinking. But regardless, every citizen of Ukraine is responsible for the politics of the country. And if we are demanding for all Russians, and like some people like to say here, that all of them do carry burden, if not guilt, but at least responsibility for Putin's actions. It is also the same way, should be applied the same way to Ukrainians. We are responsible for our politics, we are responsible for our statements. And if some parties on the West are taking it, on the East are taking it happily, when some people are screaming about destruction of all Russians and going with that chauvinism, they are not friends. And don't be mistaken, these are wrong statements. We should not be supporting that. And then these are the things that may preclude us or may impose barriers for our joining NATO and Europe later, because our foes will be pointing fingers at us and saying, see, there is 1.5 million army armed, and we're taking them within our ranks. These are not harmless things. So one thing is what's surprising. Actually, no, one good thing is that I think we will not hang Medvedev in Russia ourselves. We will give him out to Ukraine. And you guys do whatever you want with him at the end of this war. Mark, you know how to work things, right? Exactly. Yeah, we'll give him up. Give him to Azov and the rest in Ukraine. So he'll be judged there. All right, 370,000 are with us. Over 170,000 click the like button. Please continue sharing links to that stream in your social media. Do not forget to subscribe if you have not done that yet. To Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. We both doing live streams now. And to the privateer station, if you're watching that translated into English. We are still experimenting with that, and we look forward to see you this week on Monday. All right, and it should be Tuesday Eastern in English. See you then. Goodbye.